everyone, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Kathy Dixon from Action Potential. So the theme at Action Potential this week is running. Get outside, whether you're a runner just starting or whether you're somebody who already runs all the time. Today is a beautiful day for running. So I'm here with Beat the Boar. I usually do exercises for your back and core, but today we're just going to focus on the core, specifically for core exercises and some cool down stretches that can help you up your running game. So we're not going to use weights today. We're going to start on the ground. Our warm-up is going to be our single leg bridge. So we're going to lie down. When we do our bridges, we're bracing our belly, driving through our heels, lifting up in the air. That's the 2-leg option. If you want to do the 1 leg with me, we're going to lift this leg to a 90-degree bend. Stationary knee stays pointed straight up to the sky today. And we're going to brace our belly and drive through our heel and lift and lower back down. We're going to do 10 on each side. If you prefer to do the 2 feet on the ground version, then you can go ahead and you'll do 2 sets of 10 with both feet. 5, 6, make sure that belly's nice and tight. 7, 8, 9. My neighbors are probably going to think I'm crazy talking to myself in the backyard. And 10, we'll switch legs. So you may say, Kathy, why do I care about my core if I'm running with my legs? Well, the core is the foundation of your posture, and the ability to stabilize your core while letting your extremities, such as your legs or arms, move, can prevent injury, and they can help you be stronger and faster, pretty much in any sport or activity that you do. It always goes back to the core and your posture. One more here. Great. So now we're going to go on to our side. We're going to do the clamshell. So remember, we've done 2 kinds. We've done the clamshell with your hips bent. Today we're going to do with your hips straight. So lie so your body's in a straight line. Bend your knees so your feet go behind you. So my shoulders, my hips, and my knees are in this straight line now. And my hip is stacked directly on top of my bottom hip. And I'm going to tighten my belly to keep my hips there and my feet together and rotate that top knee up to the ceiling. The trick here is don't let your hips roll back as you lift your knee. Okay, so we're getting core stability and hip mobility. And we're working the leg in this straight position because we're trying to activate our hip stabilizers for when we run and we land in that single leg position. I think we're going to do about 5 more here. 4, 3, and keeping that belly nice and tight, not arching my back, keeping my hips stacked right on top of each other. 1 more, and you should feel that right here in your butt or your side hip. We're not going to make huge muscles form there. We're literally doing this more or less for the control of the move. So legs straight, knees bent behind you, hips are stacked right on top of each other, belly's engaged, so I almost close my ribs for my belly button, and I'm lifting that knee up and down. Good. So we are going to do some jumping at the end of today. You don't have to jump, but because this session is kind of for runners, whenever we run and we land on that foot in front of us, it's almost as if we're jumping and landing. So I wanted to throw some of that in, as well as just the core stability piece. 3 more. And 3. Okay, so now for our traditional core exercises, do like the sit-up type stuff. So instead of doing a straight leg raise where both legs are up and dropping the leg and back, or the knee bend and heel tap. So again, this is always a safe option to bend those knees if you can't comfortably get the legs straight. We're going to incorporate the leg raise with a little bitty crunch. When I say a little bitty crunch, that soft ball is under your chin. You're lifting just the back of your shoulders off the floor, not pulling at your neck, and back down. So the exercise goes 1 leg up, 1 leg straight. This guy's never going to touch the ground. A little crunch, switch your legs, and a little crunch. So a little different take on the bicycle or the scissor kicks, okay? Making sure that my ribs are down, lower belly's pulled down towards the floor, and not pushing up towards the sky. It's really important to have some good active hamstring length. If you're going to take up running, So we're getting a nice little stretch here by trying to keep our knees straight. If you don't like the straight leg position, you can do bent and pull the knee in, kind of like a version of a bicycle. Okay, but we're not doing any twisting. We're going to get to that later. So let's do two more. One, two, and two. And you can really feel your lower belly work to prevent your back arching from the floor when you don't ever let that farthest leg kind of touch the ground. All right, moving on to our plank. So I grabbed my timer. Nothing fancy in the plank position today. We're just going to go into our plank and hold for a minute. Depending on how I feel, we might do that 1 or 2 times. So you're going to get into your tabletop position. Your wrists are under your shoulders, hips are on top of your knees. I'm going to bring my shoulder blades in and down, push from my armpits through the heel of my hand. Lower back's nice and straight, not curled. Okay, from this position, I'm going to step back. My weight stays over my hands. My belly is pulled towards my spine, and I'm nice and tight, and I set the timer. So make sure as you hold your plank, I always keep thinking to myself, heel of my hands, armpits, belly, armpits, belly. I don't ever want to round out my shoulders or tuck my butt so that my spine bends, because then I'm just going to strain my neck. All right, so we're at 27 seconds here. If you feel like you're starting to quiver, that's good. Just keep checking your form. Make sure that your weight's from your armpits into the heel of your hands and your belly's pulled nice and tight. If it's too hard, you can always go down to your knees and hold your plank in the knee position. Just make sure you keep those shoulder blades down away from your neck. And we've got 10 seconds to go. I'm feeling my front and my back quiver together. And that just tells me that I'm working my core. And 2, 1. Step your knees in. Okay, we're going to do that one more time for a minute. Might as well, right? Again, I'm not a terrible fan of being down on your forearms if that's your preference because you have bad wrists. It's okay, just make sure that your shoulder blades are in that tucked down position and not up in your ears. All right, so let's go back into our plank again, and then we'll add some mobility. To get my timer to keep me honest. So find your armpits, brace your belly, step one foot back, then the other, and we're going to hold here. So again, making sure that you're feeling your armpit through the heel of your hands, and then that belly's pulled up nice and tight. Planking is a great way to activate your whole entire core. Sometimes you plank and move, and sometimes it's good just to keep yourself honest and make sure you can just hold a plank for a certain time period. So we're about halfway there. It's a little harder the second time around. Again, if you need to, you can still keep going for the whole minute, but just drop to your knees and make sure your shoulder blades are tucked. We've got 20 seconds to go. Feeling the pressure from my armpits through the heel of my hands, pulling that belly button up tight towards the ceiling, holding nice and tight. We've got 5 seconds to go. 4, 3, 2, 1. And come on in. Okay, so for kind of a new one today, before we do the plank with movement, we're going to go into a side plank. I've gone over the plank to side plank transition. This is more, we're going to try to target our obliques or our side abs while we're still holding a plank, because the bottom side of my body is going to be active by keep engaging that bottom hip and my armpit on this side, okay, the non-moving side. And then the moving side, my arm is just above my head next to my ear, or you can start just right here depending on your shoulder mobility. This leg straight, and I'm just kind of crunching my knee out to the side. Kind of in that side plane, I'm not bringing it forward, kind of moving in this like jumping jack snow angel plane. I do have my bottom knee down. If you want to be super killer, you can be up on your feet in your side plank, making sure that armpit is set and doing your crunch. I actually don't like that position for my arm. I don't think I'm strong enough. So I'm going to get my wrist under my shoulder. My wrist and my shoulder and my hip are all in a straight line as if I did my plank to side plank. Okay? And then I'm going to drop my knee. So wrist, shoulder, hip, knee, all in a straight line. Ribs are down, belly's tight. We're up here for 10. We're going to crunch. 1, 2. Make sure when you're doing your crunch, you don't feel your butt sticking back behind you. Okay, you want to keep that bottom hip active. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then we'll switch sides. So as I'm in that side plank position, I feel that shoulder blade muscle, that serratus anterior or armpit muscle. I feel that engaging so that I'm not tensing up my upper neck. So I'm going to get in that position with my wrist under my shoulder, shoulder, hip, knee in a straight line, arms right by my ear, ribs are down, belly's tight, and I'm side crunching. 1, 2, 3, really kind of activating through this bottom hip so that I don't let my butt bend back. 5 more, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much better than a bicycle on your back, right? All right, so as promised, the plank with movement. So it's great to activate your core in still positions. However, we really put it to the test when we can keep our core engaged as we move, such as walk, jump, hike, stairs, hills, skate, all of the above. So let's do our bear crawl. So this is where we get in the tabletop position. Bring our shoulder blades into our spine and push from the armpits through the heel of our hands. Tailbone straight behind us. There's no tuck in my back. I'm just going to tuck my toes and lift my knees up off the floor. Notice my back remains straight, okay? I'm not rounding, and I'm not letting my shoulders come up into my ears. That's really important as we start to walk. So if you're not comfortable walking, you can just lift and hold for as I walk forward and back, or you can try the walking with me. Remember, no jackknife trailer. The butt doesn't raise up in the air, okay? So shoulder blades, belly, lift, and we're just going to walk, arm and knee, just reciprocal, and then we're going to go backwards. I really have to concentrate on my belly and the heel of my hand because I really want to come up into my neck as I do the movement here. So I have to concentrate and focus that my core stays engaged. I'm also thinking like I have a glass of water balancing on my back so it's not tilting side to side. Belly's tight. This is our third one. We're going to do one more. Why? Because I said so. Okay, so we're just going to keep going, trying not to get any rocking or wobbling. Totally uncoordinated and get out of sequence here. Okay, so that was kind of our warm-up for our core on the ground, and now we're going to bring it up into a body weight support or standing position. I've done a lot of these exercises before, so if you're having a hard time kind of following with the form, I would just say kind of check back to an older exercise one where I talk about the squat tap back or the marching one. So that's what I would suggest. But for the first one, we're going to go into our half kneel position. So remember, our hips 90 degrees, our ankles right under our knee. From the front view, that front knee is straight over my toes, not out, not in, and my back hip is nice and tall. I'm going to tuck my back toe here. So I'm going to brace my belly. I'm going to lift and hover. Notice that front leg didn't bobble in or out. My pelvis stayed level. We're going to hold for 3 seconds and then drive up tall into standing and march that back leg up forward. Then to come back down, we're going to kick that leg really far back behind me, lower back into the hover, no knee to the floor, and then we're going to come back up. Okay, so from the side, I'm going to go into my half kneel, tuck my toes. Notice my shoulders stay tall over my hips. I'm not bent forward, and I'm not bending side to side. I'm going to hover for 3 seconds. Then I'm going to drive that front leg straight so I'm tall in my hip, and then march the back leg into a 90-degree march here. Okay, so let's try that. We'll do about 5 on each leg. So here we go. We hover, 2, 3, and march tall. 2, 3. Back we go and hover, 1, 2, 3, and march tall. 1, 2, 3. Make sure that you're concentrating on keeping that belly tight and march. It'll make it a lot easier for you to move from the standing to the kneeling position. And just make sure that those shoulders are staying nice and stacked, tall over those hips. Have window between my legs here, which means I'm keeping that in-out stability when I'm in the single leg position. I think this is 5. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel everything quiver from like here down when I do that one. All right, so we're gonna switch legs. I'm gonna put my left leg in front this time. Tuck my toe, belly's nice and tight, shoulders are over my hips. I'm gonna lift and hover for 1, 2, 3, and then march tall. Notice my knee is right towards my shoulder, not rotated in towards my chin. Big step back and hover. My knee's not on the ground for 3 seconds. Back up tall. Back down again. Belly's tight, which helps me drive my heel into the floor. Straighten my hip so that just my hip socket is bending that leg. I'm not tucking my butt, bringing my spine with it. So this is 4, and we have 1 more. And then march up tall. Great. Just checking my time here. Perfect. So the next one, we used to do the weight shift, tap back, march to the floor, squat, weight shift, tap back, march to the floor. People call these skaters sometimes, or a version of it. We're going to go into that tap back position, okay? And I want your hand of your front leg, the opposite hand forward. We're going to do arm drivers. So I'm going to come into that march, switch my arms, and as I come up here, do a little hop, and then I'm going to drive right back into that tap back. So again, my opposite arm is forward. I'm going to drive up tall into that march, hop, and go back. Okay? So we're working on the balance of that single leg for when I'm running. I can land on a nice stable hip and knee and ankle. From the side, squat, weight shift, tap back. I'm here. I'm going to drive tall, march, and hop. If you're not comfortable with the hop, you can always come into the march, or you can come into the march. Look, you keep my balance. And you can do just a heel raise and back down if you wanted to make it a little harder. All right, so we're going to do about 5 on each side and see how we feel. So we're going to squat, go back into our tap back, arms forward, and here we go. We're going to go 1, 2. Make sure your belly is nice and tight. What it does is it helps absorb the shock as you take off and land. My jump is straight up in the air. And 1 more. Good, we're going to switch sides. So we're in our tap back, we'll squat, weight shift, tap back with the other leg. Opposite hand of the front leg is forward. I'm going to come into my march and my hop. Here we go. We're going to march and hop and tap back. I'm watching myself in the camera here, and what I'm looking at is, does this knee remain stable, pointed straight ahead when I land and drop back into that squat position? And 1 more. Good. So if you are on your own time, you could do more repetitions at one time. You could vary the speed, or you could do a second set. I have 1 more exercise I want to do before I show you a good cool down for running, either for a warm up for before running. The last one, we call it a monster walk at action potential. From the front, you're going to bring your feet together. You're going to go up on your tiptoes, and then you're going to drop into a little booty squat. For some reason, I just keep my hands here. You can keep them here. It's up to you, okay? If you're not comfortable on your tiptoes, okay, in the squat position, you can do flat feet, that's fine. But just remember, if we're doing 4-foot running like we all should, I'm going to land on my 4-foot. So it's good practice to be springing off the toes, kind of like jump roping. So I'm going to feet together, up on my toes, drop into my squat. I'm going to step on a diagonal, up and out, and together, up and out, and together. Stabilizing through my core. I'm not letting my knee turn in or turn out. I'm keeping my toes in my knee pointed straight ahead, so I know I'm using my side hips and my belly. So I'm going to turn this way and go forward and back a couple times. So up on your toes, down into your booty squat. I should feel pressure here in my butt. My belly's engaged to support my spine. Bring up and out and together, up and out and together, up and out and together. And then we're going to go back and out and together, pushing off those toes, keeping my belly tight. Again, we're going to go up and out and together, keep moving through this. Some people will put bands around your legs here to add a little extra resistance to the hips. The other thing we can do, if you're okay jumping, is we can do a little bit of leaping here. So I'm going to leap out and tap, leap out and tap. I'm still staying on the balls of my feet, staying down in my squat. I'm not bouncing up and down. Okay, so I'm really working those legs on a takeoff and landing position. So if you did those 3 times a week in conjunction with your running, I think you would notice a big difference on how you feel after you're running, as well as preventing injury and even getting a little extra speed or oomph to your time if you're running for time. So a little cool down stretch. Did some jumping. We did a lot of core stuff, so I want to get some rotation in there. And I want to get some ankle stretching, so calf stretching, and I want to get a little bit of hamstring stretching. So the first thing we're going to do, we have 2 muscles in the back of our calf. We have our gastroc, which crosses the knee, and we have our soleus, which is from mid-calf to ankle. So we're going to focus on that soleus, because if you're not used to forefoot running or jumping, that's going to be really sore. So we're going to go in this half kneel position. You're going to keep your heel on the floor. Press your front knee forward over your second toe. Okay, so I'm getting a nice bend in my ankle. As I do this, okay, I'm thinking of driving my heel into the floor, keeping my knee straight over my second toe, so I'm getting a stretch right down the back of my calf here at the bottom part towards my ankle. And we're just going to hold this 10 to 30 seconds is a minimum. If you feel your heel coming off the floor, think of driving it back down. You may have to back off your lunge. Okay, and then we'll switch. So same thing, I'm going to press forward. I'm not worried about my hip flexor here, so you can position that back leg however you want. That's not my goal. My goal is to keep my heel down, bring my knee forward over my second toe, my foot's flat and spread on the ground, and I'm getting a nice stretch through the bottom of my calf and my ankle. Hold a couple more seconds. Okay, now we'll come into what we call the greatest stretch in the world. At least that's what we call it at Action Potential. We go into our plank position, okay? I'm going to bring one leg forward into this big hip march. So I'm kind of in like a big runner's lunge. My goal here is I'm trying to stretch all the muscles around my hip girdle, okay? And then my back leg is straight, my spine is straight, and my outside hand, so my hand on the outside of my body, my legs out to the side, hands are in line with my foot, okay? Outside hand stays on the ground. I'm driving from that armpit like my plank. And I'm just going to rotate the middle hand in through my body, up to the sky into a T position. You're going to want to let that leg open up from the front. Keep it straight. The back leg straight. You're rotating through your spine and your hip, opening your chest, getting rotation in your spine. I feel a humongous stretch through my hip back here. We hold. Come back in. Brace your belly for your plank and step back, okay? If you need to, you can go on your knee and get that foot forward. And then you lift that back leg straight up in the air. Hands are right in line with my front foot, pressing that outside heel of my hand into the floor, rotating that middle hand up to the ceiling. I still feel a stretch over here, just a lot less. And we're just holding this stretch. Feel a bit of a hip flexor stretch on my back leg, so that's the front of my hip over here. I guess what we're saying is my right hip's tighter. Okay, so now if you need to put that back knee down, go ahead. Get the leg back. What we're going to do is just step back into our plank for a second. This is that yoga move where you drive your hips up in the air. Try to drive your heels to the floor. Still pushing the line from the armpit through the heel of my hands. And I'm just going to rock my heels to get a little active calf stretch. And this one's reaching not only at the bottom of the calf, but also up towards behind the back of the knee when the leg is straight. Do a couple more here. And we're just going to step our feet in. Okay, my legs are bent, hands are on the ground. I'm trying to straighten my legs. If I have to come up, that's fine. So I'm getting a hamstring stretch, getting a nice rounding of my spine. And then you just kind of roll up And I always end with a little back bend. So that's what I got for you. So it's running week at Action Potential. We've been posting blogs all over Facebook, so check them out for dynamic stretching warm-ups or tips on getting started with running or tips on how to maximize your running game. But just don't forget, you got to work your core. And we'll see you guys tomorrow on Facebook Live.